A very good morning to one and all. On the behalf of the St. John's Institute of the Pharmacy and Research, I, Samiksha Mhatre, a Master of Pharmacy student in Quality Assurance, would like to welcome you to our 31st session of SCIENTIA. Before commencing the session, let's have the small video of our college campus. Now I would like to commence with the today's session, which is entitled as Pharmaceutical Validation and Overview. It's a pleasure for me to introduce our eminent speaker for today's session, Mr. Sudarshan Kakad sir. Had worked as an assistant professor in PDVV College of Pharmacy, Vilhard Ghat from year November 2014 to June 2017. Then he had worked as assistant professor in PRCOP Pravan Nagar. Sir is currently working as assistant professor in Department of Sutics in St. John's Institute of Pharmacy and Research, Palghar, from October 2020. He has completed his B Pharm and M Pharm from Amrutvani College of Pharmacy, Pune University. He had attended and presented papers in various national and international conferences. He has published various research and review papers. With this brief introduction, I now request sir to take over the session.
Thank you, Samiksha, for nice introduction. So, good afternoon to all. Today, we will discuss about the pharmaceutical validation, the review overview regarding that pharmaceutical validation. So, in the presentation, we will discuss about the what is meant by validation, the concept of validation briefly, when it is needed, when that validation is needed, and why that validation is required, or what is the need of that validation in pharmaceutical industry. Then we have to discuss about the validation master plan, validation protocols, and elements of validation. So under that elements, we have to discuss about the URS, user requirement specification, design qualification, installation qualification, operational qualification, and performance qualification. Now, first we will discuss about the introduction, or what is mean by validation. So basically, this validation is a documented evidence or the documentation. So whatever the things we have performed, or that manufacturing, whatever the things are performed or happen in the manufacturing premises, that all are documented, and that document is nothing but your validated, or the that process is nothing but the validation. When we discuss about the definition, it is a documented evidence that prove any procedure, process, equipment, material, activities, or system perform its intended function adequately and consistently lead to the expected results of uniform batches that meet the required specifications and quality attributes. So when we discuss this validation in general way, when anything is happen once, in that case we always say that this is the accident, but the repetition of that same process is happen, in that case we say that this is the incidence. But if that same things is happen thrice, or the expected result we will get in the consecutive way, in that case we always say that this is the validation. And this validation process, validation is related to the procedure. If any for example, any procedure is validated, or any process is validated, any equipment is validated, the material validation, in that case we say that the raw material or the packaging material or any system or any product, on the basis of process validation we conclude the product validation. Then when we discuss about the scope of validation is in the analytical test methods, instrumental calibration, then process utility services, raw material, then packaging material, equipment validation, facility validation, manufacturing operation, cleaning validation, and the operations. Analytical test validation. When we discuss about the analytical test validation, so these are the some parameters, that is your accuracy, precision, specificity, LOD and LOQ, limit of detection and limit of quantitation, the linearity, range, ruggedness, and robustness. So I think the session over these analytical test methods are already discussed. So these are the some parameters we will consider during that analytical test methods. Then second things, the scope of that validation is in the instrument calibration. When any instrument or new instrument is installed in our premises, or in the manufacturing premises, or in the any institute premises, before performing any activity on that instrument, first that instrument need the calibration. Or if that instrument is shifted from one place to another place, for example from the location, if that location of that instrument get changed, in that case also that calibration is required. So it requires a high level of accuracy in the measurement. Some common measurement involve the temperature, pressure, relative humidity, conductivity, time, rotation, current, voltage, pH, volume, and weight. Calibration is carried out in the beginning of validation. So these things, that is your qualification and the calibration. So these are the some these are carried out at the beginning of your validation. So when we discuss about the calibration, when any new instrument is installed, or when that instrument is shifted, or any changes or any updation in that instrument is take place, in that case we will go for that calibration. When we discuss about the qualification, qualification is the thing, whatever the processes we have carried out for that calibration purpose, or calibrating that instrument, or during the installation of that instrument, or the process, that all the documented evidence is nothing but the qualification, and validation is nothing but the all the supporting data or the proofs regarding that process, from that uh, instrument calibration to the whatever the output it get from that instrument. Then process utility services. So under that process utility services, different types of waters are required for manufacturing of that pharmaceutical dosage form or the preparations. So validation of that water system is required. Then steam, again the HVAC system, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system again require the validation. Then compressed air, different gases, drainage system is also there in the manufacturing that premises, not in the manufacturing premises, but that premises. But and again it required the validation. So for that purpose, we required the process utility services. Then the raw material and packaging material. So that validation, why that validation is important in raw material and packaging material uh, of that manufacturing is, first, defining specifications of each and every item of that raw material and the purchase packaging material. So whatever the raw material we purchase from, or the packaging material is purchased by that manufacturer from the vendor, the specifications given in that whatever the COA is provided by that manufacturer, that vendor, it must meet the results of your material, that is your raw material or the packaging material, with your uh, whatever we say that the COA or the specifications of that document. It meets the product, process, and meets pharmacopoeial requirements. So whatever the results, it meet the product quality, it meet the process, and it will meet the pharmaceutical requirements. So which guidelines we follow for manufacturing that product? Okay, GMP guidelines or the good laboratory practices we follow, or where we have to sell that product, either we have to follow the FDA, US FDA, MHRA, or the TGI guidelines. According to that requirement, it must fulfill that all the specification. In stage 2, vendor certification, to study and certify who can supply you the desired quality of material in required quantities at expected time and affordable price. So in this vendor certification, 3 points are important. We required a quality material. Second things, required quantity, it must fulfill all the requirement of that manufacturer. Then third things, expected time, so the delivery time of that material is within that expected time and within the affordable price. If he will, or that vendor will give that material in the affordable rate, that vendor is approved, or that purchasing of that raw material and the your packaging material is only through that approved vendors. Then equipment, when we discuss about the equipment validation, so these 5 steps are important. So which are these? User requirement specification, design qualification, installation qualification, operational qualification, and performance qualification. We know the things. Qualification is the beginning of any validation process. When we discuss about the user requirement specification, if manufacturer require a particular instrument or the particular machine for that operation purpose or for the analysis purpose, first that manufacturer needed to give the requirements or the user requirement specifications, which kind of instrument we require. For example, when we take the example of your tablet compression machine, how much station we required. Okay, so whether that machine we require, that is hand operated or the fully automated. So these are the some specifications we must mention in that user requirement specification. So that user requirement specification is prepared by that manufacturer. Then design qualification, after that user requirement qualification, he will send it to the vendors, different vendors, and that vendor give the design qualification. So this kind of machineries we have. Okay, so from these documents come from the vendor side. Then installation qualification, after approval of that machine or the instrument from that manufacturer, that installation start, and that installation is carried out by means of your that vendor person, or he will install that machine in the manufacturer premises. That is nothing, and the document regarding that installation is nothing but your installation qualification. Then operational qualification, after installation, that vendor person will operate that instrument or that machine in the manufacturer premises, and he will assure that the whatever the performance or the whatever the operations he had given in the specification part, that all the specification meet to that user requirement specification. And last point is your performance qualification. So that when we discuss about the performance qualification, that all the performances is, or all the activities regarding that performance qualification, it's carried out in the manufacturer premises by the manufacturer. So any person or who actually performing or operating that instrument in the manufacturing premises, that person will perform the activities, or actual, when we take the example of your tablet compression, that person will perform or will compress the tablet or that tablet compression machine, and he will conclude that whether our user requirement specification and the performance of your instrument is the having some similarity or is having some differences in that performance. Okay, so this is all about the equipment validation. Then we will move towards our cleaning validation. So cleaning validation, the most in the cleaning validation, that cleaning areas. So which cleaning areas we first prefer? That is your first equipment and process containers. So cleaning of the equipments and process containers. So whatever the equipments we use for the manufacturing purpose. For example, again we will take the example of your tablet compression machine. So whenever we perform the batch, or when we manufacture or produce batch on the tablet compression machine, it needs or it required to clean that machine or that tablet compression machine. Okay, again it required to clean the process container. So whatever the hoppers are there, again the beakers or whatever the vessels, that reactors are there in the industry, the reactors are there. In that case, we need to clean that reactors also. Okay, so these are the equipments and process containers. When we discuss about the product containers, so whatever the product is there, so in which container we place the product. So whatever that after compression we place that tablets in which container, again that required the cleaning. And last one is your facility. So whatever the facility area is there, or the compression machine area is there, that cleaning of that facility area is also required. So the cleaning area containing the equipment, process containers, again the product containers, and last one is the facility. So whatever the instruments and the containers we use for manufacturing of that product, whatever the containers we use for the finished product, and third thing is the facility. So whatever the facility we use for that manufacturing of your formulation, that all required a cleaning. Then points to be considered. So during that cleaning validations, so which points are considered? So first point is your cleaning limit. So for example, that cleaning team has done their cleaning in that premises or over that equipment or the containers or during in the facility, but how much cleaning limit is accepted? Okay, so according to that regulatory authorities, that limit is differentiate. So for example, 90% is acceptable or the 95% is cleaning is acceptable. Okay, so this is all regarding that cleaning limit. So this cleaning limit is considered in that cleaning validation. Then materials used for that cleaning. So whatever the materials or the detergent we use for that cleaning purpose, it must be mentioned in that cleaning validation. So which kind of material is used, whether that material having any interaction with that manufactured product, or is there has any interaction of your detergent or the cleaning reagent with your equipment or the containers or your facility. So it these all points must be considered during that cleaning validation. Then cleaning methods, which method we applied for cleaning of that instrument or the your containers. So that process must be mentioned before cleaning validation start or before that activity will start. Then frequency of cleaning, so when that cleaning will done. So time interval, so after 6 hours, after the 12 hours, or after 20 hours or 24 hours, when that cleaning is required. So that frequency of cleaning is also required to mention that cleaning frequency. Okay, so this is all about that cleaning. Then process validation, the most and briefly introduced part of this validation part is your process validation. So we know the things that validation having the wide scope is related to your process, is related to your product, is related to your equipment, is related to your utility services, is related to your equipment validation. Okay, and when we discuss about the process validation, on the basis of that, whatever the results we will get by means of the formulating any product or the manufacturing process, on that basis we say that that process is validated. And if process is validated and we will get the predetermined results in the constant way, in that case we say that your product is also validated. But when that product is validated by applying the validated process, if our process is set, in that case only we will get the appropriate results within the specific limit. So process validation is defined as a documented program which provides a high degree of assurance that a specific process will consistently produce a product meeting its predetermined specification and quality attributes. So whatever the process is set, or whatever the process is applied by that manufacturing, it will use a consistent result or the consistent product. Okay, in that case we say that this is the process validation, or that process is validated. So that process validation having the had 4 types: prospective validation, concurrent validation, revalidation, and the retrospective validation. Or again we say that the sequence is prospective, concurrent, revalidation, and retrospective. When we discuss about the prospective validation, so that prospective validation is applicable when your process is totally new. So when we implement the new process, in that case prospective validation is applicable. Then when we discuss about the concurrent validation, it involves the monitoring of critical processes or the critical processes steps and end product testing. So whatever the critical processes are there in that process, that critical processes are separated out, not separated out, but pointed out, and the team is work on that critical processes or inhibiting or minimizing that critical processes, and your endpoint will get a consistent result. Then third things, your revalidation. So the revalidation is required when validation, or that when validation schedule is there. So after 6 months or after 12 months, it required a revalidation. In that case, we apply that validation. So approved validation process, again we will implement and we will get the revalidation. Then retrospective validation is carried out on the historical data. So whatever the historical data is there, on the basis of that historical data, the retrospective validation is performed. Then when validation is to be considered, so when that validation is considered, when the process is new, totally new process, when your instrument, when new instrument is there, and at the time of new instrument we require the validation. Then process equipment which are altered to suit changing priorities. When that process is changed, is there any modification in the process? In that case, we go for that validation. Or the equipment is installed, or when we ship that equipment, in that case, or is there any modification or updation in that instrument or the equipment? In that case, we need to validate that things. Then process where end product test is poor and unreliable indicator of product quality. If when that manufacturer did not get a good quality product or the appropriate quality product, in that case validation is required. Control of all critical process parameters, results of IPQC, final quality attributes and stability test. Control of these, all the critical parameters present in that process, whatever the result get from that IPQC test, so we'll compile, and the stability data. So all these factors are within the acceptance or the acceptable limit. At least 3 batches, including at least 2 production batches in the final batch size, should be validated to show the consistency. So when we say that the validation, so we require the 3 continuous batches, and it will show the repetition of that result within the acceptable limit. So this is the importance of validation. So these are having the wide application in the reduction in the quality cost by preventing the cost, by preventive cost, by appraisal cost, again the internal failure cost and the external failure cost. Then the process optimization by the effective, efficient, perfect, and at minimum cost. We will optimize that process. It will give the assurance of the safety, and last one is it will give the assurance of that quality. Then the next thing is your validation master plan. So validation master plan is one of the document which has been the part of the validation process. So what is meant by validation master plan? Validation master plan is an internal approved document that describes in clear and concise wording the general expectation, intentions, method, and approach to be used during the entire validation efforts. So that validation master plan is the document, and that document is for the internal use only, for that internal persons. So whatever the persons which are in the organization, that manufacturing premises, okay, so this document is only for that internal persons only, and it will use the all the process, the results, or all the validation process in detail in that validation master plan. So document contain details of all the activities with a time frame and clear-cut responsibilities assigned. So that document contains whatever the plan activities in the upcoming sessions, when it will perform, on which day, on which time, responsibilities, role and responsibility of each and every personnel in a person in that validation is these all are included in that validation master plan. Then document is required by law and FDA inspectors to demand a copy of the same to see. So again, according to the requirements or the regulatory guidelines, it required in the manufacturing premises. Then when we discuss about the advantage of that validation master plan, these are the advantage. What activities are to be performed? So what activities are to be performed? Who is going to perform these activities? So we have to perform the compression, but who will perform that compression? Okay, so this is, will not see the compression only, but any activity is there. So which activity is performed, who is going to perform this activity, so which persons or the personnel are involved in performing that activity, when the activity should start and when they should get over, so when that activity will start and when that will end. So this is the pre-plan, or the planner is required for that activity. How the activity will perform, so how that activity will perform, so the process or is there any method or the SOP is there for performing that activity. Mention that what documents will be generated. So during performing that activity, what documents are generated. So whatever the documentation is there, so compile or the generation of that document. What is the policy of revalidation? So when that revalidation is required, so after 6 months, after 12 months, after 3 months, so the policy document regarding that validation, revalidation, not the validation. Who are the authorized person to initiate and review the validation activities? So who will initiate that activity and who will review that validation activity? So all that things are mentioned in that validation master plan. So it will cover all these areas. The first one is the introduction to the proposed validation program. So whatever the program is there, it will it contains the proposed program, validation of building and facilities, whatever the building and the facility validation, it must be mentioned. Validation of equipment used in the production and utilities. So whatever the equipment we use or that manufacturer use in the production area as well as the utility area. For example, in the utility area, the water system is there. So all that will cover under that validation master plan. Pharmaceutical process validation, we already discussed the things. So whatever the process we implement in that manufacturing purpose, that must be validated, and that all are comes under this validation master plan. Water system, we know the things, HVAC system, heating, ventilation, air conditioning system. Then analytical methods and the analytical instrument validation, that accuracy, precision, ruggedness, robustness, that all things are comes under that validation master plan. Cleaning validation and the vendor certification, raw material and the packaging material specification, that all are included or covers under this validation master plan. So validation protocol. Validation protocol should describe clearly the procedure to be followed for performing that validation. It should include the background information regarding that. So validation, basically that validation protocol contains all the information. So job and responsibility of that persons which are involved in that activity, which activity is to be performed, objectives of that validation and qualification, background information regarding the same product, again the site of the study where that study is performed, responsible persons, which persons are responsible for this activity, descriptions of SOPs to be followed. So the which SOP we follow for manufacturing or for the validation purpose, and the descriptions of that all the SOPs, which instruments or the equipments are involved, standards and criteria for relevant products and the process. So which are the standard limit or the which are the acceptance limit for concluding that output or the results we will get from that process. Then type of validation, and last one the frequency, when we go for that validation. So after 3 months, 6 months, 12 months or 9 months. So this is nothing but the your frequency. Then elements of that validation. So first element is your design qualification, installation qualification, operational qualification, and the performance qualification. We already discussed the things who will give the user requirement. First thing is your user requirement specification. Then design qualification according to the user requirement specification, that vendor give the design. Then after if the design is approved by that manufacturer, in that case installation will be carried out, and that documents regarding that installation is nothing but the installation qualification. Operational qualification, the activities are performed by that vendor person in the manufacturing area of that manufacturer is nothing but the operational qualification, and last one is the performance qualification. This performance qualification is checked, or the performance is checked by the manufacturer person, and the documentation regarding that process is nothing but your performance qualification. When we discuss about the traditional qualification process, so validation master plan containing, so first design qualification, it contains the your good practices requirement or your user requirement specification. Okay, so that all are comes under this vendor selection, functional requirements and specifications. So what are the requirements of the manufacturer is sent to that vendor, and he will prepare the design. Then after approval from this vendor, the second next step is to delivery of that equipment. After delivery, installation. That delivery and installation is a part of your installation qualification and is a part of the your vendor. Then after installation, configuration, write a operational qualification plan and executing the operational testing. Again, these are your operational qualification part, and these all are the responsibility of the vendor only. After that, the right performance qualification part and the execute procedural testing. These are all the performance, and that performance check by the manufacturing person. Last one is your usage, maintenance, retirement, and change control regarding the same. Okay, so this is all about the your traditional qualification process, and the we discuss about the elements of that validation. So we already discussed the things, that is your design qualification. When any design or the according to the user requirement specification, that vendor will give the design to the manufacturer. So design qualification check items contains the GMP and regulatory requirements, performance criteria, facility airflow, moment flow and the pressure regimens, reliability and efficiency of that instrument, constructability and installation of that equipment, the maintenance and access to critical equipment and instrumentation, and last one is the safety and the environment impact. These all are the checklist of these design qualification. Then installation qualification. So installation qualification is the responsibility of that your vendor or the persons comes from that vendor. That considerations in that installation qualification is the installation conditions of the wires or utilities, installation of all the utility services regarding that instrument, then calibration, preventive maintenance, cleaning schedule. So whatever the calibration schedule is there, so whatever the preventive measurements is to be done for starting that instrument, or the cleaning schedule regarding that instrument, that all are the part of your installation qualification. Safety features. So what are the safety features? Supplier documentation, prints, drawing and manuals. So whenever that installation is carried out, that vendor will give the manuals regarding the same. Then software documentation, is there any updation or the documentation regarding the software? Then spare part list of that same. Environmental conditions, temperature, humidity. Then the equipment design features, material of the construction and the cleanability. So which material is used for the constructing that equipment, that all are mentioned, and where that will be clean. Then in operational qualification, consideration include the process control limits, that is your time, temperature and pressure. Software parameters are to be discussed in the operational qualification. Raw material parameters are discussed. The process operating procedures, materials handling requirements, process change control, training, short-term stability and capability of the process, and last one is the thing, the potential failure modes, mechanism and worst case scenario. So during that, whatever the things we will observe during operating any instrument, that all comes under this operational qualification. Performance qualification. So that performance is checked by the manufacturer person. And the performance qualification consideration include the actual product and process parameters and procedure established in the operational qualification. So whatever the operational qualification, the procedures or the process are set in the operational qualification, that will meet the performance or the user requirement specifications or not. Then acceptability limit of or the acceptability of the products, assurance of process capability as established in operational qualification, process repeatability, long-term process stability. So these are all about the your performance qualification. When we discuss about the process dosage form validation, quality is not tested into product, but rather is built in. So don't test the quality of that product. Instead of that testing the quality in the product, you build that quality in the product. So product validation is a systematic approach to identify, measure, evaluate, document, reevaluate a series of critical steps in manufacturing process that require control to ensure a reproducible final product. So you identify that, measure that, evaluate that, and during that all the processes we carried out in this process, document these all the things during the development and manufacturing of that dosage form. And that all the results, it must be a reproducible one only. Okay, so this is all about the uh, overview of this pharmaceutical validation. If you have any questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. I feel immense pleasure to take this opportunity to propose vote of thanks to our eminent speaker, Mr. Sudarshan Kakad sir, who graced this webinar with the extremely relevant address on pharmaceutical validation and overview. Sir has rightly highlighted on various points like what is meant by validation, scope of validation, about the process validation, importance of validation, and also explain the validation master plan, its advantages, validation protocol, elements of validation, dosage form, and form validation. We are very grateful to our chairman, Mr. Albert D'Souza, sir, for his constant encouragement, and thanks to Mrs. Elvina D'Souza, ma'am, Secretary of Eldel Education Trust, all the other dignitaries of the management. A special thanks to our principal, Dr. Savita Tauro, ma'am, for immense guidance and support. My deep sense of appreciation and thanks to all the participants who attended this webinar with the great willingness. Thank you all. We are starting another session soon. So let's begin with the another session for the today's. Oh, sorry.